Is everybody just quieting down at the sight of me at this podium? That's amazing. I'm going to bring this with me everywhere I go now because I have the power with this thing. My name's Brian Young. I'm an instructional designer in education technology services, and this is our Doceri panel from our campuses. I'd say it was over the summer last year, we decided we were going to do some really focused looks at how Doceri can be used by instructors across different disciplines and at different campuses. And we have some examples up here of some really great uses at different campuses, different disciplines. And I'm not going to explain too much about Doceri, what it is, how it works, all that stuff, because I'll be at the demo table this afternoon between 1:30 and 2:45. So stop by and you can actually use this yourself if you're interested. So without further ado, Mike's going to start us off with how he uses Doceri in his nursing program.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Evans. I'm a nursing instructor at Penn State Worthington Scranton, and I was fortunate enough to be able to pilot Doceri at Worthington Scranton campus. Could everybody hear me in the back? Okay. And
Use the microphone now.
use it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So I teach mainly in the RN to BS program, so I have mainly non-traditional students who are working full-time as RNs in a hospital setting or a community setting or wherever they're working. And we do all our RN to BS courses over a 7-week format, so they're intensive courses. It allows them to get more courses in. So just a framework of some of the challenges I had with using the technology in the classroom. So I introduced it into a course called Nursing 390, Transition to the Professional Role. It's the first RN to BS course when they come back to school, and it looks at a variety of topics. So what I did here was just bring up a PowerPoint that I used to show how it allowed me to be more interactive and allow them to engage more in the classroom. Bear with me here. Okay, so just an example of a PowerPoint slide they would have on the screen. You know, I'm lecturing to them. The nice thing about Doceri, which Brian could show you at the interactive table later on, is this iPad allows you to walk anywhere in the classroom and allows you, the student, to be able to do whatever they want with it, to draw on the screen or whatever you're doing. So, you know, one of the first questions I give them, I'm going to go to a different question because I like it better. And I'm impatient, so I keep hitting it. And it says it's going to go to the next slide. And now we went to somebody else's, so I'll apologize now. Nope. Maybe.
So there are only about 5 slides here, Mike.
Okay. So, you ask them a question. Any question you want to ask them. So maybe I asked them here, on the previous slide there was a question. So where are you as a nurse and why? Or as a student and why? I was talking about theory novices, beginner to expert model. Some of them have been nurses 20 years, some of them are brand new back to school, so on and so forth. So what I really liked about it is, instead of just having random discussion, I was able to capture their ideas. I could draw right on that slide if I wanted to. I don't have a stylus here. But, so I'll say to the class, so tell me where you're at. And somebody might say, brand new. Somebody else may say, I'm on my 4th degree, I've never left college, which is not uncommon. So I'll say, okay, expert student, but novice nurse. What I used with this information, though, was to help pair students for projects and see who were the new students, who were the older students, who could help people with technology, because technology was integrated in the course with blogs and so forth. And I also allowed them to I passed this around for them, and they were able to write on it and say things they wanted to when you asked them questions. And we had some extra iPads through the library, so they were all able to use it and communicate, and it worked very, very nice. And the nice thing is you could just erase everything and start all over. So it doesn't keep you tied to the whiteboard or chalkboard in the classroom. It allows you to be interactive, it allows you to walk around and see them, and it worked exceptionally well. So whatever you have on your desktop, you're able to see, and you could change anything you wanted to as far as the back screens. The other nice thing that I did with it was, I'm sure many of you want to highlight something important in your slide and you forgot to bold it or point it out, or maybe you just forgot to add it, and that happens to me all the time. So you could just simply highlight, draw an arrow, whatever you want to do. And you could capture that image and save it, or you don't have to save it and you could just move on with the next lecture. So I used it more as an active learning strategy and to allow students to become more engaged in the classroom. And the overall response through the feedback was very positive. So, thank you. You could hit the next slide. It didn't like me. Do you want this?
No, that's fine. I gotta walk around because I can't teach sitting down. I never teach sitting down, so this way I'll kind of demonstrate how I use the Doceri as I'm walking around the classroom. So I can have complete control over the computer and over the interactive whiteboard. I'm at Penn State Harrisburg. I'm an associate professor of math education there. I also teach a few of the math courses. And we have a math ed, science ed lab that we just spent like $4,000 on a brand new interactive whiteboard. This does everything that interactive board does. It's just as good. The other thing I've done is I've had Doceri on the iPad. I also downloaded it onto my computer. So when I've been doing presentations at conferences, I've been able to walk around the audience at the conference and do the same thing. I'm not tethered or restricted to staying up at the podium. I can walk around and I can also give the iPad to some students and have them share some of their work that everybody can see. And we can look at different ways of engaging the class right from their seats. And the one thing I have found in my courses is the students are more willing to share the work if they can do it right at their seat, as opposed to getting up in front of a class and kind of doing some kind of demonstration. I think there's a research study there somewhere. So as a math educator, I use it as a remote interactive whiteboard, basically to show how I am teaching with it. Again, as Mike had shown before, I can highlight with different pens and somewhere here.
You can also change the pens and how they're,
right.
what they do. So all of your pens are now the pens that I have that are totally different.
Thicknesses of pens, different colors of pens, so I can be pointing out and highlighting different things. If I'm showing a PowerPoint presentation, for example, here, this was a SAS Pennsylvania Student Alignment System, which all educators in Pennsylvania K-12 must be familiar with. So if I was doing a lesson on the different areas of SAS that I want to make sure they attend to here, again, I can use the pen and point out, the 6 elements of the SAS wheel here. Just use it as a interactive PowerPoint, and it also has the internet capability, so I can go right to the active links and be connected to those websites automatically, and then go right back to the PowerPoint that I was presenting here. So you have a lot of that interactive between the PowerPoint or anything you want to show online. As I mentioned, it allows students to share their work from the seats, and I'll share a little example of how I've done that. I can also use a PowerPoint, and I can record what I want to talk about with that particular PowerPoint, and I posted it on YouTube, so then if students were going to miss a class, or if I was going to be away at a conference, I would require them to watch the PowerPoint, listen to the lecture along with the PowerPoint, and do the activities, and then reflect on it through their Angel discussion boards or whatever I was using at the time. So I've been able to highlight and record some different interactive lessons. I'm trying to get better at that. I don't feel as comfortable doing that, but I am at least feeling like you're getting parts of the particular lessons when I'm, need to miss a class. The other thing I wanted to share here, using it with future teachers, since a lot of the courses that I teach are for future math teachers or elementary teachers, is basically show it as a teaching tool, how it can engage students, how to show the different dynamic technologies as learning tools. And I have an example of that we'll look at. Promoting learning by emphasizing key points and concepts, through the Doceri highlighting. And also through Doceri, you can record students' work and you can replay it. So you can stop it at any point and talk about what has that student done to that point. Or if there was an error, stop it at that particular point for class discussion and have the students determine whether or not an error had occurred. So here's a student work. Here it is. So here's some students going through and showing some different algebra they were doing. And again, I could stop that at any point and we could talk about it as a discussion. But it's just a way for a student to share what they were doing.
So when you captured that, it looks like you speeded it up when you played it back.
Yes, yeah, you can adjust the speed
Nice.
at that as well.
Okay.
This is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with GeoGebra, Geometry Sketchpad. It's an interactive geometry tool. So what I did is I recorded a particular activity with the GeoGebra, but I did not put any voice to it on purpose. Because part of my goal with future math educators is to get them to speak the language of mathematics accurately and correctly and precisely. So I showed this particular activity. Let's see if it'll work here. And I wanted them to see if they could put a script to it in the correct mathematical terms. And what I'm doing here is I'm creating a slider so that if you look at the equation y equals mx plus b, that sounds familiar to you, the linear equation. If you change m or if you change b, the slope of the y-intercept, what effect does that have on the graph? So they can use the slider then to go back and forth and see the effect on that particular graph. So I just went through and I actually created the sliders. And I'm actually creating an equation, and I graph the line. And now if I change the slope, what happens to the line? So they can talk about that as a discussion. If I change the y-intercept, what happens to the line? So again, it's looking at how do you use inquiry-based learning when you're teaching mathematics. And then the last piece, for future elementary teachers, I had a couple of elementary students actually do some work. And what I could do again here is actually stop it so that I could have the elementary pre-service teachers discuss, did they think there was an error here? Where's the student's misconception? So this student is putting these fractions in order from largest to smallest. Try to figure out, he's got the 3/4 there. He was confused how to split a circle into 5 equal parts. There is a voice to this, I don't know why it's not coming out. there's the 2/3. So even if I stopped it right there, there's a really good lesson with respect to why is there a misconception on the part of the student. And what he's doing is he's not dividing the circle into equal congruent pieces to be able to make a comparison. So he goes on and he actually makes an incorrect solution at the end as to which of the fractions are correct. But again, it was a way to actually have a elementary student's work shared with the pre-service teachers. Yeah.
I really liked your idea of recording a session without the voice, and then having the student unpack what was going on. You know, being the voiceover in there really gets them to recognize the process,
Right.
and articulate that.
Yes.
That's brilliant.
That's
something you probably couldn't do before, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And a lot of the times, what I've noticed is the inappropriate language that they're using all the time,
Right.
and so that gets them to focus on the process. Yeah.
When you have the students provide input, as in that example, you have to pass them your advice.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if there's another way to do that, but that's how I do it.
Doceri is working on an app for the student side.
Okay.
Probably another 10 to 12 months out before they actually have that kind of stuff.
I also am at Penn State Harrisburg. My name is Matt Blackman. I am an adjunct, so my issues at times are a little bit different. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those issues. And while she is at math ed, I'm on the math and engineering side, and mostly what I'm doing is remedial math, although I suppose we're all doing remedial math or remedial subjects anymore, but that's kind of a different idea here. I'm going to stand here, so if this misbehaves. Also using Doceri. The idea here is, and I have to also walk around, and my idea here is that learning has to be interactive. With the students we have today, it's a video generation, it's a television generation. The second I'm behind that podium, they disengage. Somewhat like some of you have disengaged. I'm not offended by that. I'll be back there to see who you are in a moment. But the idea is you can turn me off. You can turn my channel. You can multitask. You can multiplex. That's actually a myth. And on my first day of class, I start off by telling them I'm actually multitasking here. I have students that are watching this presentation, and we'll see very shortly they'll start making snarky comments. I don't really care what kind of comments they want. If they're going to talk about math and they want to do it in the context of making fun of me, well, at least we got the math in there, right? So my philosophy of education is a little bit different, and quite honestly, probably needs to be investigated from a pedagogical perspective, but this is what works for me. So I want active learning. I also am going to be back there with the student. The students have all kinds of things that are infinitely more interesting than me. A cell phone from 1981 is actually more interesting than me. And they have iPhones and iPads and computers and neighbors and everything else. And so what I have to do is to be able to enforce discipline in the class. To be quite honest, I'm a very jealous God when it comes to teaching. I want them to pay attention to me and nothing else. It's their mistake for signing up for me. It's not my fault. I get their time. They must pay attention to me. The only way I can do that is by interpersonal relationship, just to be flat out honest with you. I found nothing else that works. It's probably due to poor pedagogical background. Maybe once I get a PhD, I'll be better. I doubt it. I think I'll be worse. Nothing really has improved me. I've been doing it for about 25 years. But what it does do is it allows to get over that fear of me. I do not know why they're afraid of me. They're absolutely terrified. I've only bitten 3 students, only 2 of them have died. I do not know why they're afraid of me. But if I can get back there with them, and if I can show them that I make mistakes right from the beginning, and show them that a mistake is no big deal, that what we can do is I can do something like this, or like that, my annotation's not working, I then can undo it. And it's no big deal. So the second we start doing that, so the rule is somebody new has to make fun of me every time I make a mistake. Fortunately, I give them lots of opportunities. Why? I want them to see that math is a progressive kind of thing. Nobody's good at it from the beginning unless you just happen to be very, very lucky. I'm neither lucky nor good, but you can always get better. That's my standard. I also want them to know that everything we do is captured. Now that's a pretty debatable idea on the utility of that, because it does take something away from the classroom experience. In other words, if it's already on YouTube or iTunes, why do I need to be there? And I tell them they need to be there because I take points away from them if they're not. I tell secret knowledge if they're not there. And also I do other kinds of mean things like pop quizzes and things and give bonus points. But the reason I capture the class, and I don't understand this, I don't know why, but students repetitively go back and watch these dumb things. I do not understand why someone would listen to me voluntarily more than once. I mean, the statistics are baffling, but students will actually go back and watch these things over and over again. Unfortunately, I have not found that correlates to better understanding. So I don't know what to make of that. Other than the fact is, I don't ever have to answer those emails. Did we do anything important in class today? I wasn't there. So my answer always is no. When I saw you weren't there, I canceled class. Standard response. The problem with this, of course, is that if you're an introvert, and a lot of teachers are, it can be very daunting to be back there with the students. I'm an extrovert. I'm not afraid of anything except spiders and a few other things. But I'm an extrovert. If I make a mistake, if things go wrong in class, I don't really care. Because if I can't fix the technology, there's 84 experts out there, all of them who've lived their entire life with the technology, and 90 of them are going to offer unhelpful suggestions, right? 84 students, 90 unhelpful suggestions. You can tell why I'm a math adjunct, right? I can't do math. You're going to see that, but more or less, right? In that world, for them, if something breaks technologically, they don't care. If the PowerPoint crashes, if something goes wrong, they're okay with that. That's a challenge that we have to, I think, get over. The other problem with being an adjunct is you see my infinite clock there. This takes a long time to do. It takes a long time to do it with quality. That's why I do it with poor quality. It still takes a long time. I decided long ago I'm always going to capture everything I do. It's just going to be out there. It's not going to be fantastic. I just got to get over myself. I'm still working on that. You can think of me and invoke whatever deity you might invoke to help me with that. I hate going back and listening to myself. It's excruciating to see the errors and things that I make. But what it does do, though, is it allows me to flip the classroom. In general, because the type of students we have today, they're not like when I was in school before the Civil War. They don't pay attention. They don't read their textbooks. They're not going to do recitation. So what I do is I record a lot of stuff I want them to see out of class, and I can force them to at least access it. And I tell them, speed me up, slow me down. I don't care how you do it. I do it on iPods, I do it whatever, everything's automated. I don't have to do it myself. It gets done automatically for me, and that way they can then interact with that. So then when we get to class time, I get to spend time working problems. I'm still working that out on how to make that work. The other problem, like I said, is pressure. There's a lot of pressure in class with this. When you're passing the iPad around, class slows down. And that's probably a good thing for me. When time gets constrained, I'm looking at the clock now, I'm over time, I just talk faster and explain more poorly. That's how I cope. I don't think that's good pedagogy. But in class, right, when someone doesn't get it and they've got the iPad and they've got the stylus, I've actually had a student say, I'm not giving you the stylus back until I understand this. And I stood promptly up on the table and gave that student a standing ovation. Why? Because that's learning. Right? Now, if they all can't do that, well, then we've got other problems. If that's Penn State, that's my boss's problem. Doceri does crash some. This is cutting edge stuff. It's not bleeding edge, but it's cutting edge. Nothing happens more terrible than at the end of an hour lecture, the Wi-Fi bounces or Doceri crashes, and I just lost 50 minutes of something I got to go recreate. That makes me sad. I try to mitigate that by doing alternate streams. I don't have a good handle on that yet. That's going to happen. I've lost about 3 hours with the lectures so far this semester. That's life. The last problem I think we have to deal with is the nature of the student. Pardon the dunce hat. That's the only illustration I can find. You can't fix students who aren't motivated. We have a major issue in pedagogy that we can't address here on how do we deal with students that aren't ready for college, that quite frankly are legacy of No Child Left Behind, and I'm not a professional educator, so I won't talk much about that, beyond to say that half my students pass pre-calculus and they still have trouble adding and subtracting negative numbers. Something's wrong there. I can't fix that in a semester. We also have the pressure that remedial classes are growing in size and length, and we've got to do something about that. Our administrators have said they need to cut down on the remedial work. It's taking too long for them to complete degrees. I don't know how to do that. Doceri's technology is not going to help with that. But what it does allow us to do, I think, is to solve some of these problems. I capture the classroom. I interact with the students. The students actually learn that I'm not as dreadful as I seem, and that makes them more likely to come to office hours. Not a lot of them still do, maybe 20%, but that also lets me have more interaction. I'm more prone to learn their names, and also they're more likely to text me. I give out my cell phone every class because as an adjunct, I'm elusive. I'm like vapor. You can't find me. If you happen to find me, I find a new place to hide. So I want them to interact with that. Doceri allows me to do all of those things and quite a bit more, and I'll be glad to entertain questions here at the end. Here.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Jennifer Shannon. I teach engineering technology courses at Penn State Berks, and I've used Doceri in 3 different courses now. The first one was an electrical systems course. The second one was a circuit analysis course, and presently I'm using it in a digital electronics class. I've used Doceri for about 3 different purposes. One is to create homework solutions or solutions to quizzes or exams that I'd like to post on Angel. Another is interactively in the classroom to create, again, solutions to applications visually in the classroom during lecture time, and then to capture that electronically for students to refer to later. And the third way was to create an instructional video through a Doceri recording for, to replace me basically when I couldn't be in class. So I'd just like to share with you some of the positive and negative experiences that I've had while I was using Doceri. First of all, let's see. This is an example of one page from a homework solution. Some of the things that I liked about Doceri is the different pens that you can use. You can change the different colors. So I would generally always write the questions in one color and then the solutions in a different color, so it's easy visually for the student to see. It's easy to create boxes, to box the final answer, things like that. And so that made it rather nice. If I decide in the future for the next semester that I teach the same course to change up the homework assignment, it's really easy to go in and edit and erase one question and replace it with another. So I've already created this basically a database of all the solutions that I can now go back and edit when I want to make changes. So those are 2 of the advantages. Another advantage was, for example, I can connect Doceri to my computer, so if I have some graphic in a Word file or from the internet, I can actually use my iPad to take a nice quality photo of that, and then in the camera roll of the iPad I can edit it, I can crop it, I can enhance the image, and then import it into the Doceri, this is their Blackboard feature, or their Whiteboard feature, I mean, and then annotate on top of it. So that was a really nice thing that I came across because I'm not the best at drawing circuits, and if it's already been drawn somewhere else, why not take advantage of that? So that was another good thing. The cut and paste feature I found to be very helpful too. In the circuit analysis class that I teach, certain circuit analysis techniques require you to redraw a circuit maybe 8 times before you get to the solution, where you're constantly changing things, replacing sources or creating open circuits or combining components. And that's very time consuming. So what Doceri allowed me to do would be to draw the original circuit, and then I could select that circuit, copy it and paste it, and then on the second picture I could erase a piece and add another piece and add colors to show the different things and the step-by-step procedure. So I found that to be very helpful also. Some of the negatives, I had difficulty, because I had a lot of drawing that I wanted to put on a small iPad, I needed to have some fine resolution, and so I couldn't seem to manage doing it without a stylus. And also, I need to expand the image on the iPad about 500% in order for me to be happy with my handwriting. That takes a little bit of practice, and I did try to pass the iPad around and have students work on it, and because it takes a little bit of practice, and I'm impatient, and I'm kind of like a crazy control freak, and I'm like, how can anybody read that? You know, I wasn't willing to spend the time in the classroom to allow them to perfect that, so that wasn't something I took advantage of. Also, Doceri allows you in the whiteboard to create a background that's graph paper, which is kind of cool when you think about it, but I had a really hard time. There's a tool for you to draw straight lines, but to actually place that straight line in where you want to place it is impossible. So that was another negative that I came across. Oh, okay, let me use the next slide. Probably the most, important use that I found for Doceri was actually in the classroom. Just a little bit about how I run my classes. The students are given a reading assignment that contains application examples prior to coming to lecture, and they're expected to be prepared for class. Now, you always give them a reading assignment and they don't do it. So how do you take care of that? Well, when they come to class, then I'll have a PowerPoint that will review the concept that they were supposed to understand, and followed up by a clicker question, which then quizzes them on that. And my clicker questions are worth points. So you get points for just responding, so that gets them to show up to class. But then you get additional points if you get the question right. And you only get the question right if you have some kind of general understanding ahead of time. So that's my motivational tool. Now if they've done the pre-assignment, they've been exposed to the material once. They come to class and we do the clicker questions, they've been exposed to it again. And then that evening they're required to do written homework assignment, they've been exposed to it 3 times. So at least they've seen it multiple times and hopefully they're starting to grasp it. This is an example of, I embed in the PowerPoint, I embed the clicker questions. So the students are given when the clicker question comes up, they're given some time to come up with the solutions. They're all multiple choices. And I encourage them to work together and to discuss what solution they want to arrive at. After a certain number of minutes have gone by, I make sure I say, everybody click in. So at the beginning of class, I always count, all right, how many people are here today? My classes are usually not bigger than 45 students, so I can do that. And then I make sure that that number is clicked in, and if it hasn't, I said, everybody click in, and I give them 1 more minute, and then I turn off the question. So if they haven't clicked in, tough luck. And then with the clicker software, it'll show them classroom performance with a bar chart, and we see, you know, how many people got it right, how many people didn't. And then after that, I write out the solution on top of the PowerPoint clicker question. So it looks something like, this is an example of what it might look like. And then what Doceri allows me to do is then to save that image or that drawing. I export it then to the Dropbox as a PDF file, and then I'll have a PDF version of the PowerPoint, which then I'll merge those 2 files, and I'll actually insert the drawings where they fall in the PowerPoint. It's a little bit of a slightly cumbersome system, but it seemed to work, and then I would post that to Angel so students could go back and refer to it to study. And they seem to really appreciate this resource for that. Let's see, what else did I want to say? So the positives of this are that they have that resource, and the PDF is available for them. There are some negatives too that I found with this whole procedure. Initially when I started to do this, I wanted to capture the entire PowerPoint, and I found that Doceri is not really very good at PowerPoint animations. Certain animations it doesn't capture at all, and every animation it's got to create a new drawing for. So some of my classes are 100 minutes long, so even without the animations, there's about 40 to 50 slides. You add the animations to that, and it's like a couple hundred slides. Well, that just generates this incredibly large file that Doceri can't export. And so that wasn't going to work for me. So that's why I had to figure out a way to only save the files that when I was drawing on it. And that's why I had to do that PDF merge thing to get the files. Another thing that I found rather annoying is, I don't have a pointer, but if you can see at the bottom of the slide, it has that created with Doceri with the little handprint on there. You don't see that when you're doing the drawing. It's superimposed after you save it. So in particular with the homework solutions, white space on my screen is very valuable to me. And so I would often have to be down at the bottom of the right-hand corner. And then afterwards, it would be superimposed on top of my writing, and you can't see it. So that was a problem. I had to always in my mind say, stay away from the right-hand corner. And so that was just something that bothered me.
There's an in-app purchase that you can get rid of that.
Oh, yeah?
But so for the pilot, we couldn't purchase them because you had to buy it through your app. So we couldn't buy 5 of those and say everybody has one because you have to purchase it yourself through the iPad.
Okay.
It's just a structure.
So I can do it for myself?
$30.
How much?
$30.
All right, I see how much it's annoying to me. Is it worth $30?
I couldn't handle it, I bought it.
Did you?
To get rid of the thing is only $4.99. To get rid of that bottom right-hand side. The desktop app is $29.99.
I got the desktop
Yeah.
Okay.
One way
Good to
around
know.
that, what I did to begin with, is I made my own background, and I just put a black block down there that had the
So that you would know to avoid that
yeah, because
area.
I'm not smart enough to remind
Yeah, me
myself all
neither.
the time to do that. And it's very frustrating, because you'd have to redo the slide.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, it's frustrating.
Let me jump in there. that-
Okay, sorry.
Speaking of- I'm back to
We'll just advance the slide again.
Classrooms here at University Park, I don't wonder if you want to have coffee back here. We actually, 2 things with that. We've actually, being Penn State, have worked with the company, SP Controls, and anyone that's buying less than 10 copies of this can get it for $25 if it's purchased through Penn State. If you buy 10 or more, it's $15 through Penn State, and purchasing is aware of this, so if they see any kind of things coming through, and so is Doceri. But Brian, we might be able to go back and talk to them and see what we can do about getting that bottom corner, top of Steve, and see if we can come up with a solution for that. Maybe get rid of that.
Wonderful.
In fact, I'd like to take some of your negatives that everybody's talking with today and give feedback to Steve and Doceri and the company. So these are things that they can maybe look at and incorporate in the next version that we're coming out with. I think it would be very helpful to the company.
I'll be brief. I teach calculus for science and engineering, calculus, math 140, 141, 230. And I began to use Doceri and little by little and shaky last semester. And now I just love it, and that's all I use. I don't use the blackboard anymore. But at some point I stop and I ask my students, what do you think about my toy? Is it all right? I'm having a lot of fun, but maybe you don't like it. And the overwhelming response was, we love it. We really like it. It's neat, it's cute, and how you do it is fantastic. And you are not covered in the blackboard. We can see because I am standing someplace away from the screen, and everybody can see what is going on. And of course I say, could you write what you think? And they can write it. But I basically use it as a presentation tool. And the key point is, I don't record my voice or anything like that. I simply write and write and write for 1 hour, and then I save the file, and I post it in Angel. And so the students have the lecture notes as if they were taking them. But at the end of the class in the evening, I go back and I polish my notes and produce a better version, and it is there. And now more and more I see students looking at those notes, printing them, and using them. So I see it is very convenient. So let me show you some of the things that I do. For example, I go to the classroom and I use a computer algebra system, Mathematica. So this is an example of a wheel that is turning, and I pick a point on the wheel, the red dot there, and I follow the trajectory of that red dot. So that's the blue path. That's a cycloid. It's a very famous mathematical curve from ancient times. No, not from ancient times. But that curve in particular, it helped Huygens to think about the clock. So how to develop clocks. Anyway, the thing we have to do is we need to find equations for that curve. This is a definition just like that. So what I give my students is a handout with that picture. And then we start working on that picture. So I tell them, well, what do we need to do? We need to find the center. Yeah. So I come here and I point to the center and I say we need to find the center. So give me the coordinates of the center. Coordinates H, K. And then I tell them now, well, we need to draw an auxiliary right triangle. There is my auxiliary right triangle. So I just do it. And I keep going and going and going. Yeah. And after I complete that, I get something like this. Yeah. So I have all of that. And then I just post it in Angel. Yeah. And they can see the final answer. So they could do that, or they could rely on their own lecture notes. Yes. And the same. This is particularly good for me because if I want to do some problem solving with these word problems, so I give them a handout to the students. I said, we would like to complete these basic steps. Yeah, so I need you to read this problem. And then I say, all right, who can tell me what is the quantity whose rate is unknown? First thing, focus, tell me, what is it that it is not known and what is the problem asking? Yeah. So, and then the student discovers, well, what is the problem asking is at what rate, whoops, that's huge. So at what rate is the angle between the string and the horizontal, yeah, decreasing? So I can highlight that. And then I say, okay, now tell me, what are the quantities whose rates are known? And then we highlight the corresponding ones. And then can we draw a picture of the situation? Yeah, then we draw a picture of the situation. And we keep going. So, but they have the handout, and they can complete the things, and I complete them along with them in class, and that's what we get. So I am doing that right in class, and I'm just waiting for them to give me the feedback, and then I write it, or I pass it along, and I ask them to write it. And they write it up. That's what we get. And so I do that systematically, yes. This is an example that I just gave this week. This is a polar graph. So for this example, I just start with this, yeah. Sketch the graph of, and under these conditions, yeah. And so we draw the sketch, and the important thing that the students have to learn is that it's very easy to draw a rectangular graph, which is that, and what is difficult for them is to translate that rectangular graph into a polar graph. And so I go about coloring different sectors for different quadrants and plotting the points and indicating how that graph is done. We just go system, and the students say, but why did you do this? Why did you do that? And they force me to add and add more different features to the slide until it is completed and they fully understand it. Yeah, and then we can just move along.
So it's 10:45, guys.
Okay, well, okay, so I mean, we can produce nice flowers and things like that, but that's how I use it, yes.
Is this your drawing in the class, or is this when you went home and redid it?
No, this is essentially 90%. I will not do this at home.
Oh, okay.
This takes 1 hour. This example, these 4 slides of polar coordinates, we did them in 1 hour. So it takes 1 hour to do it, and it takes me just about 20 minutes, half an hour to refine some little details and post it. And it's very easy to post. You just click there and it says, send it as a PDF file. If you send it, you get it, and it's all. And it is there. Simple. Yeah. That's how I use it.
All right. Join in thanking everyone for... We probably have a couple minutes for questions before we get booted out. So I'm going to set up the other computer so we can save time there, but if you guys have any questions.
Can you talk about availability?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Dave Pest, I'm the group leader for Technology Classroom at UP. If you're using a podium machine, a Mac or PC at University Park, and it's in one of our podiums, it has Doceri installed. If your campus participates in cooperative lab management, i.e. you have a standardized podium machine, it will have Doceri on it because we bought licenses for basically every podium machine in the university system. We also have some licenses, we have a pool of licenses so that if you feel like you really need to use your laptop to connect with instead of the podium machine, we can do that. It's not as stable because when you use it with the podium machine, you have that nice solid internet connection and that really helps things, but it will work with between two laptops if you are willing to deal with a little bit of instability.
Yeah, this was on wireless. So if you notice that there was a little lag and when the writing came up, if you're using a podium computer, there's no lag at all.
Yeah, we had to use the 4G sort of cell wireless bridge in here just because the wireless in the conference room can be shady, but it's really snappy if you have a really solid wireless internet connection. So yeah, it's you buy the iPad app is free from the App Store, and then if you're connected to a machine that has a license, which all the podium machines do, it'll just work as if it's the full version.
We connect our iPad to the multiple instructors connect to the same Doceri at the podium?
In this, for the same class?
No.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The first time we launched Doceri Desktop on the podium, it'll ask you to put in a little password just so your students can't connect without you knowing.
Right.
And then from that point on, anytime you log in, the Doceri app will remember that. But if somebody else logs in, it'll be their separate login.
Okay. So I can use my iPad. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? We'll be at the demo table and just find us and tackle us and ask us questions. That's fine.